Hello everyone, my name is Bamdev Sharkar. Today I will be presenting an analysis of corporate social responsibility and cross-sector collaboration. Drawing on three very influential academic studies, we will explore how contemporary CSR is conceptualized, how organizations collaborate across sectors to achieve responsible business outcomes, and what theoretical perspectives help us to understand partnership success. This presentation synthesizes insights from Matten and Moon's 2020 framework on CSR meaning and dynamics, Clark and McDonald's 2019 resource-based analysis of multi-stakeholder partnership, and Hathami and colleagues' 2023 study on distributed leadership in corporate volunteering. Okay, let's have a look about our agenda. Our agenda covers 8 key areas. First, we will establish a contemporary definition of CSR based on Matin and Moon's capacious framework. Second, we will explore how this definition aligns with current responsible business practices. Third and fourth, we will examine the challenges and opportunities in cross-sector collaboration, along with the mechanisms that enable or hinder effectiveness. Fifth, we will discuss why stakeholder collaboration is important for responsible business. Sixth, we will compare how leadership is understood and enacted across our three studies. Seventh, we will critically analyze three theoretical perspectives: the resource based view, the leadership for sustainability lens, and the learning versus blame framework. And finally, we will conclude with practical implications and future research directions. Well, let's begin with Maton and Moon's definition of CSR. They offer what they call a capacious definition, internationally brought to enable comparative analysis across different contexts and time periods. According to their framework, CSR empirically consists of policies and practices of corporations that reflects business responsibility for some wider societal good, with the precise manifestation and direction lying at the corporate's direction. This definition is deliberately context dependent, meaning it doesn't precise or prescribe specific issues, stakeholders, or mode of responsibility. Four key characteristics emerges then. It enables comparative analysis across nations and industries. It encompasses both implicit CSR embedded in wider institutions and explicit CSR, which consists of voluntary corporate policies. It facilitates understanding of dynamic changes over time, and fundamentally it positions CSR as legitimacy seeking behavior. Corporations adopt CSR to secure, maintain, or repair legitimacy with three key constituencies, which I will explore next. Well, Maton and Moon's framework rests on three legitimacy relationships that corporations must manage. First, corporations need legitimacy with their core stakeholders, shareholders, employees, customers, suppliers, and local communities. This group have a direct interest in the company's success. CSR helps businesses to improve their performance and provide vital resources. When stakeholders see CSR positively, they continue to provide capital, labor, customers, and community support. Second, corporations need legitimacy within broader society. This means following and supporting social values and norms. The reward is a better reputation and being seen as a good social partner. Civil society organizations often communicate society's expectations to corporations. Third, corporations must have legitimacy with regulations, both public and private. This involves following the rules of business responsibility. The reward includes maintaining legal status, favorable regulatory standing, access to public contracts, and chances to participate in governance. These three relationships shape each other. They are not independent, and their balance varies by context, creating different forms of implicit and explicit CSR. Okay, a key distinction in Maton and Moon's framework is between implicit and explicit CSR. Implicit CSR describes corporations' role within wider formal and informal institutions that address society's interests. It includes value, norms, and rules, often required by law, based on what society expects from all major groups, including corporations. European social partnerships are a good example. In contrast, explicit CSR describes individual corporate activities that voluntarily take responsibility for society's interests. These are voluntary policies motivated by what stakeholders expect. US corporate giving is a typical example. Importantly, Maton and Moon see a current trend toward mixing these forms through two processes: making implicit norms into explicit corporate policies and turning explicit corporate practices into wider regulations and norms. This interaction explains much of how CSR evolves today. Okay, how does this CSR idea fit with current responsible business practices? Maton and Moon identify six modern characteristics. First, CSR has become global, extending far beyond national borders through international initiatives and standards. Second, the focus has expanded from core stakeholder welfare to entire supply chains and even planetary impacts like climate change. Third, CSR's role has evolved from just using profits for social good to rethinking how profits are made and how value is created. In number four, governance has shifted dramatically with corporations partnering in private governance and becoming more involved in government regulations, both nationally and internationally. Fifth, organizational structure has evolved from closed to open as corporations work with external actors through standards and partnerships. Finally, CSR methods have diversified beyond traditional giving to include innovation, various regulations, standards, partnerships, and multi stakeholder initiatives. Now let's turn to cross sector collaboration. We'll examine three different perspectives from our studies. Clark and McDonald's 2019 study focuses on multi stakeholder partnership for community sustainability in four Canadian cities. They basically analyze what partners gain using a resource based view. Then Hatham and colleagues 2023 study looks at corporate volunteering for social sustainability in two Finnish cases. Using a distributed leadership approach, they explore how leadership transitions enable shared responsibility and social sustainability. After that, while we reference Pulido Gomez and colleagues' work on construction safety partnerships, which uses a learning versus blame framework, we will focus mainly on the first two studies as they provide the most detailed examples. Each perspective offers unique insights into collaboration challenges, opportunities, and what makes partnerships succeeded. Okay, cross-sector partnerships face many challenges. Common difficulties include managing different partner interests, where goals may conflict between sectors, dealing with power imbalances, especially between large corporations and smaller NGOs or community groups, handling complexity as partnership grows, then addressing resource constraints including time, funding, and expertise. Maintaining accountability across multiple stakeholders with different expectations, building trust across sectors with different cultures and values, then aligning timelines when sectors work at different speeds, ensuring equal voice when some partners have more influence, and measuring impact when outcomes are complex and long term, and sustaining engagement over time despite competing priorities. That is very important. These challenges require careful attention and specific strategies to overcome. Well, despite challenges, cross sector partnership create significant opportunities. Resource pooling enables partners to combine financial, human, and technical resources they couldn't access alone. Knowledge sharing facilitates learning across different expertise domains and organization cultures. Innovation emerges from bringing together different perspectives, experience, and approaches to problem solving. Legitimacy gains occur as partnerships signal commitment to wider societal concerns. Risk sharing distributes cost and uncertainties across partners. Scale amplification allows partners to achieve greater reach and impact than individual action. Policy influence increases through collective voice in governance discussions. Community trust builds through visible commitment to local priorities. Then learning opportunities develop new capabilities through collaboration. Network expansion creates connections to new stakeholders and resources. These opportunities explain why organizations pursue partnerships despite their complexity. Well, now at this point, we can ask that what mechanisms enable effective collaboration? Well, Clark and McDonald's resource-based analysis identifies several success factors. First, resource complementarity. Partners must bring different but compatible resources that create value together. Second, clear value propositions. Each partner must understand what they gain from participation. Third, governance structures that balance power and ensure inclusive decision making. Fourth, communication channels that enable regular, honest exchange. Fifth, trust building processes that develop over time through consistent behavior. Hatemi and colleagues' leadership study adds further mechanisms. Distributed leadership structures that share power and decision making across partners. Boundary spanning roles that connect different organizations and sectors. Collective sense making processes that build shared understanding. Co-responsibility frameworks that make leadership everyone's responsibility. Reflexive participates that enable learning and adaptation. Together, these mechanisms create the conditions for successful partnership. The key insight is that success requires attention to both tangible resources and intangible relational processes. So, why is stakeholder collaboration crucial for responsible business? Several compelling reasons emerge from our studies. First, complex challenges transcend individual, organizational, and sectoral boundaries. No single actor can solve them alone. Second, different stakeholders bring unique knowledge, resource, and perspectives essential for comprehensive solutions. Third, legitimacy increasingly requires demonstrating genuine stakeholder engagement, not just consultation here. Fourth, collaboration distributes risk and responsibility across multiple parties. Fifth, partnerships enable learnings and innovation through exposure to different approaches and contexts. Sixth, collective action creates greater scale and impact than isolated efforts. Seventh, stakeholder involvement ensures solutions, addresses real needs and priorities. Finally, collaboration builds the trust and relationship necessary for long-term sustainable change. These factors make stakeholder collaboration not optional, but essential for responsible business in complementary context. Now, how is leadership understood across our three studies? Let's see. Maton and Moon's CSR framework implies leadership as legitimacy management, the strategic work of securing and maintaining institutional leaderships. This involves understanding different constituencies, expectations, and aligning corporate behavior accordingly. Clark and McDonald's partnership study suggests leadership as resource orchestration, the ability to identify, attract, combine, and deploy complementary resources from different partners. This requires strategic vision plus practical coordination skill. Hatami and colleagues explicitly theorize leadership as distributed practice, something enacted by multiple actors across organizational boundaries rather than concentrated in individual leaders. This perspective emphasizes collective agency, shared responsibility, and leadership as emergent from interactions rather than assigned through formal authority. These three conceptions aren't contradictory, but rather emphasize different dimensions: strategic positions, resource management, and collaborative enactment. How is leadership enacted in practice across our studies? Let's see. In Clark and McDonald's Canadian partnership, leadership appears through the work of coordinating multiple partners, facilitating dialogue, and ensuring value creation for all participants. This requires political skill in balancing diverse interests. In Hatami and colleagues' Finnish cases, leadership transitions through three stages. Initial expert led phases give way to shared employee led activities, then evolve towards community led initiatives with corporate support. This progression demonstrates how leadership can deliberately distribute over time. In Pulido Gomez's construction safety partnership, leadership manifests through creating psychological safety and learning oriented cultures that enable honest communication. This shows leadership as cultural work, not just task coordination. Across all studies, effective leadership involves boundary spanning work, connecting different actors, translating between sectors, and building shared understanding across organizational and cultural divides. Okay, let's compare the empirical context of our four main studies. Uh, Clark and MacDonald examined four Canadian cities: Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg, and Halifax, focusing on sustainability partnerships. Their study involved multiple partners from business, public, and civil society sectors working on local sustainability plans. Hatimi and colleagues studied two Finnish corporate volunteering cases, one with an energy company and another with a retail company. Their focus was social sustainability through employee volunteering programs that evolved to include community partners. Julio Gomez studied construction industry safety partnership in Spain, examining collaboration between contractors, workers, and safety officials. Each context presents unique challenges. Canadian cities face coordination across diverse stakeholders. Finnish companies navigate employee engagement and community needs. Spanish construction sites deals with high risk, fast-paced environments. These different contexts shape how collaboration unfolds and what successes look like. Well, three theoretical perspectives help us to understand partnership success. The resource-based view, applied by Clark and McDonald's, focuses on tangible and intangible resources that partners exchange. It asks, what do partners gain? What resources are created through collaboration? This perspective grounds partnership success in clear value proposition. The Leadership for Sustainability lens used by Hatami and colleagues examines how leadership is distributed across organizational boundaries. It asks, how is power shared? How do leadership practices enable sustainability? This perspective reveals the processes through which partnerships function. The learning versus blame framework applied by Pulido Gomez focuses on cultural conditions that enable or impede collaborations. It asks, do patterns learn from mistakes or assign blame? What psychological conditions enable openness? This perspective uncovers often visible cultural foundations. Each lens illuminates different success factors, and together they provide a comprehensive understanding of what makes partnerships work. Okay, the resource based view offers several strengths. It provides clear, tangible criteria for assessing partnership value. What each partner gain can be identified and measured. The framework explains partner motivation, why organizations choose to participate, and continue engagement. It offers practical guidance for partnership design, ensure all partners gain resource they value. The perspective is grounded in observable, measurable outcomes. It acknowledges different partner types may value different resources. However, limitations exist. The view may reduce partnerships to transactional exchanges, underestimating relational, and cultural dimensions. It can struggle to value intangible resources like knowledge, trust, and reputation, which are harder to measure but often very crucial. The framework gives limited attention to power dynamics and how they shape resource distribution. It may not explain why some resource rich partnerships still fail while resource poor ones succeeded. Finally, the perspectives can overlook the time dimension, how resource exchanges and value creation evolve over partnership life cycles. Well, the Leadership for Sustainability lens offers important contributions. It challenges traditional hierarchical leadership models, showing how power can be productively shared. The framework provides practical insights into how to organize collaborative work across boundaries. It highlights the importance of boundary spanning roles and collective sense making. The perspective demonstrates how leadership can evolve from expert led to community led over time. It emphasizes shared responsibility and collective agency rather than individual heroism. Well, the approach is particularly relevant for sustainability challenges that require multi stakeholder engagement. However, limitations exist. The framework may be idealistic about distributed leadership, underestimating the difficulty of achieving genuine power sharing. It may downplay the continuing importance of formal authority and hierarchy in some contexts. The perspective gives limited guidance on how to manage conflicts when distributed leadership creates disagreement. It may romanticize collaboration, underestimating persistent tensions. Implementation requires cultural transformation that takes time. Okay, measuring distributed leadership is challenging. There's risk of losing a strategic focus when trying to include all voices. Finally, the approach is intensive, potentiality limiting its use in fast-moving situation. Fine. The learning versus blame framework offers distinct contributions. Its strengths include directly addressing cultural barriers that block collaborations, especially in high risk sectors. The emphasis on psychological safety provides clear direction for creating conditions that enable openness and learning. The framework is practical for high risk sectors, whereas learning from errors is essential but often blocked by fear. It offers clear behavioral signs of learning versus blame of orientations. It links organizational culture to partnership outcomes. The approach provides actionable insights that partners can implement quickly. However, limitations exist here as well. The framework may downplay uh, legitimate accountability needs. Sometimes blame is appropriate. It's highly context specific, developed in construction safety settings, raising questions about whether it applies elsewhere. The perspective gives limited attention to resource exchange and value creation. It may not apply equally well to all partnership types, especially those without high risk elements, but the framework creates potential tension with compliance focused regulatory cultures. Finally, shifting from blame to learning requires significant culture change, which may be difficult in established organizations. Okay, these three perspectives complement rather than compete with each other. Each describes different success factors. The resource based view answers what partners gain, the tangible resources, reasons for engagement, and factors ensuring partnership sustainability. It grounds partnership success in clear value for all participants. The leadership for sustainability lens explains how it's organized, the process of collaboration, how power is distributed, and the organizational transformational required. It reveals the mechanisms through which partnerships work effectively. The learning versus blame framework identifies cultural enablers, the psychological conditions, trust, and safety requirements, and continuous improvement mindsets necessary for success here. It uncovers the often invisible cultural foundations that enable or block collaboration. The key insight is that successful partnerships need attention to all three dimensions at once. Resources alone won't sustain partnerships without good organization and supportive culture. Good processes won't make up for lack of clear value or cultural barriers, and positive culture can't overcome absence of resources or poor organizations. So integration is essential. Okay, uh, what do these insights mean for practice? In partnership design, organizations should clarify what resources will be exchanged early, making explicit what each partner hopes to gain. Set up distributed leadership structures from the start, rather than adding them later. Build a learning oriented culture from the very beginning through establishing norms, processes, and psychological safety. In partner selection, assess whether resources complement each other to ensure value creation. Evaluate collaborative capacity, not just technical skills. Can potential partners work effectively across the boundaries? That is the question. Screen for cultural fit regarding values, decision making styles, and learning orientation. For governance, balance different stakeholder interests while maintaining a strategic focus. Ensure inclusive decision making that gives voice to all partners in proportion to their contribution and stake. Create psychological safety mechanisms that enable honest communication, especially about problems and failures. Regarding measurement, track what partners gain to demonstrate value. Monitor how leadership is distributed to ensure power doesn't reconcentrate. Access learning outcomes versus blame incidents as cultural indicators. These practical implications suggest partnerships need international, sustained attention across multiple dimensions at once. Okay, then finally, let me conclude by summarizing our key insights. CSR evolves through interactions between implicit institutional expectations and explicit corporate initiatives. The process Matin and Moore identify. Cross sector collaboration is increasingly essential for responsible business as complex challenges go beyond individual organizations and sectors. Multiple theories reveal complementary success factors. resources, leadership processes, and cultural foundations, all necessary for effective partnerships. We see a clear shift in leadership from traditional hierarchy to distributed, collaborative model across different contexts. So, a successful partnership need integration of resources, processes, and cultural at the same time, rather than focusing on just only one. Finally, context matters a lot. Geography, sector, and time fundamentally shape appropriate strategies. Future research should explore these dynamics further, especially for processes of mixing implicit and explicit CSR in different global contexts, and examine how to effectively integrate the insights from different theories. That was all for today. Thank you so very much. Thank you for your attention. I welcome your questions and discussion. Thank you.